Oh, hello there. Welcome to a new episode of Taboo Table Talk. I'm your host, Krish Mohan, and these are your pre-show announcements. I want to let you guys know about some fun, cool shows coming up in the month of February. I am going to be doing a virtual stand-up comedy show. This is primarily all new material and things that I'm working on at the moment. But since I've kind of changed how I'm looking at stand up and approaching stand up. This isn't going to kind of be a thesis based show or a show with one kind of narrative. It's still going to have jokes about sociopolitical issues and history and philosophy and mental health and all those sorts of stuff. The stuff that you guys have come to know about me is I'm going to talk about some weird shit. But I'm going back to just trying to have more fun with comedy and talking about things that I care about and talking about things that I enjoy talking about. So that's what the show is going to be. February 3rd, next Thursday, 8 p.m. over Zoom. You can grab your tickets right on my website, krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. I hope to see some of you guys there. Looking forward to that show. And then on February 17th, I'm performing live comedy at the Bryant Street Barbershop. It's run by my good friend Shannon Norman and two of my really good friends, Garrett Teitelbaum and Osha Dwyer, are going to be performing. And I believe Osha is headlining that show, which is super awesome, very exciting. So you're not going to want to miss that. February 17th, 8 p.m. The Good Enough Comedy Show at the Bryant Street Barbershop. I believe it is $10, and you can Venmo Shannon directly for tickets on that. And then on February 24th, I'm doing another Forkful of Noodles recording where we're going to be talking about Cuba, the history of Cuba, what's going on there, and why we're seeing so much propaganda come out against Cuba. And against the Cuban government, is it valid? Is it something that we should be concerned about, or is it just again the CIA kind of being, and the United States kind of being pissed off that they didn't get to control a sovereign nation and direct where it needs to go for U.S. interests? So if that is a topic that is of interest to you, then on February 24th, come to the Forkful of Noodles recording via Zoom. So you can grab tickets for that show on my website as well, krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. You can also make one-time donations there, become a sustaining member, and get bonus content and free tickets to come see shows and virtual events and things of that sort as well. So check those out. You can check out my stand-up comedy albums on my website as well. It's basically the one-stop shop for all things Krish Mohan. So go check that out. But those are all the shows, and those are all the little pre-show announcements. And now onwards to the main event. You guys enjoy. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to a brand new episode of Taboo Table Talk. I'm your host, Krish Mohan, and do we have a great show for you guys today? I'm very excited to share this conversation because there's a lot. There's a lot. One, there's a lot in it, and she's a fantastic, really cool guest that I'm very glad that I got an opportunity to talk to. We have a Louisville mayoral candidate, Shameeka Parrish-Wright. And we get into a whole lot. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Chris, this is a mayoral race in one particular city. And yeah, I know that. I know that it's kind of focused and very localized, but I think it's important. I think local politics are very important, and this is something that I am guilty of not paying attention to myself. Right, I have not paid attention enough to local politics even in my own city, and I really should, and I really need to be better about that. So I'm trying to be a little better about starting to pay attention to local politics. But the reason why I think this is important is because what happens in Louisville, it can become a template and kind of a learning point to local campaigns all around the country. If a grassroots candidate, a lefty grassroots candidate like Shameeka, can win in Louisville, because of her politics, because of what policies she wants to bring to the city, kind of get rid of some of the problems that Louisville has been facing, then this is something that you can do in any city, right? The excuse of, well, it is what it is, doesn't really hold up when you have options um, for mayoral candidates you want to vote for. Right, and that was a big point. I know I said this when the 2020 elections were kicking off in 2016, because that's how long fucking American presidential campaigns last. Every time we have one election, they're like, "What do we do about the next one? It's got to be a bigger event. The next season of America's Next President is only 4 years away. We better prepare for the show." That whole fucking thing that they do. But no, I said this when I was talking about candidates running for president for 2020, and I said what I want to do in regards to talking about candidates in general is give you somebody that you can vote for. I think a lot of what American politics really is, and what it kind of boils down to, is somebody to vote against. And as someone that got their citizenship in 2019, and this 2020 election was the first time that I got an opportunity to vote in a presidential election, and vote in general, the problem I saw is that I didn't want to vote for either candidate. And what I was told is I should vote against somebody. And as somebody that wants to, that believes that politics and government are there specifically to improve the lives of the populace, and seeing that there were no candidates I wanted to vote for, and being told I had to vote against somebody, I know that's not the way you drive change. I know that's not how you use politics for a positive reason. That to me is just perpetuating the same problem over and over again. And I said this before, and I will say this again, but someone like Joe Biden, is the reason why we have Trump. We have Trump because of years of neocon and neoliberal economic and political policies. That's why. And instead of saying, let's learn from our mistakes and put someone who can undo this stuff, we just kind of went back to the source point of the problem. So to me, this was a pretty big step backward. But the point of bringing all of this stuff up, and to tie it back to our guest today, Shameeka Parrish-Wright, when you have candidates like her, when you have people whose policies come from experience, lived experience, when you have people that know what it's like to live in poverty, to struggle, and to know which laws and which policies have made it more difficult for the average American family, and to undo those laws on a local level to improve your lives on a community level, then there is no reason to vote against somebody. And if candidates like Shameeka Parrish-Wright are pushed off the ballot, or in the primary there is a lot of chicanery in the background because she's not a typical Democrat, right? She's not playing ball with the establishment. She's not playing ball with the corporate court. And they get screwed out of the election. They get screwed out of the primary. And Kentucky is a state that does this. We did see that with Charles Booker as well. The Democrats were utilizing Republican tactics in order to make sure that a grassroots left-wing socialist black candidate does not get primaried. And that leads it down to, well, lesser of two evils, let's vote against the other guy, even though the person we're going to draw our vote for barely has any of the beliefs that we hold. So this is why local politics become so important, because local politics give you a bigger opportunity to vote for somebody, and that's what you should be doing. And if you're just going to vote against somebody, to me, that's a waste of a vote. It becomes a waste of a vote. It becomes a perpetuating the same problem. It becomes stagnation. We're not moving anywhere. In fact, we're by staying still on shaky ground, we're actually going to start crumbling. The weight of standing still is going to crumble the ground faster, and that's what's happening in this country right now. So again, if you really want to drive change, and you believe that electoral politics is the way to drive change, which I personally don't, right? I personally don't think electoral politics is the way to drive change. I think it is a part of the way to drive change, but I think the root way that we drive change is through organizing. It's through activism. It's through organized labor. Is through direct action. That's what I believe. And here's the thing, which someone like Shameeka Parrish-Wright is, she has that experience. She has a background in activism. She has a background in, first of all, just being an average citizen in this country, not being born with a silver spoon in her mouth. And we'll get into her entire story in the interview here, but I'm just kind of giving you a preface of where this person comes from and why someone like me decided to talk to Shameeka, to talk to a mayoral candidate from Louisville. Again, it goes down to if someone like Shameeka can win in Louisville, which already kind of has a very corrupt political system, much like all of the United States, then it can be done anywhere else. And it really shows the power of voting. It really shows why they're going after voting rights now, right? Is because it does have some level of power, but it can't. But there's so much. My thing is, it shouldn't be all. It shouldn't be all or nothing when it comes to electoral politics. Electoral politics is one tool in our tool belt for progress and change. So, and if you are going to, then please vote for somebody. Vote for somebody. Stop voting against somebody. That's not doing any good. It's not adding anything to our societal consciousness. You know, it's just, it's perpetuating these problems and making it worse. But I am very excited to share this conversation with Shameeka Parrish-Wright. We get into a lot of stuff, specifically about Louisville, but you know what's happening in Louisville can be said for Pittsburgh and Detroit and San Francisco and Kalamazoo and Alabama and various different states and cities across the country. So it's important for us to pay attention to what's going on in local politics, not only in our cities, but in our sister cities as well, in our neighboring towns as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. There is a lot in it. And if you want to find out even more information about Shameeka, you can go to her website, which is shameekaparrish.com. ShameekaParrishWright.com. And you can check out more details about her policies, where to make donations to her campaign. But before that, before you head over to that website, if you're still uncertain about your decision, give this podcast a listen, because I feel like this might help. So give it a shot. And here is our conversation with Louisville mayoral candidate Shameeka Parrish-Wright. Enjoy it.
I'm excited about it. I mean, I know you're in Pittsburgh, but this is huge. In Louisville, Kentucky. Kentucky is seen as the gateway to the South. So I'm from a community organizer mind frame of, we've always had the notion to change the South, you change the nation, which changed the world. So it's exciting to me. I know that this race will pick up more national attention. It should, and I'm reaching and hoping for that. So we are poised for real change. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. That was actually, you kind of picked up right where I was going to start with you. So that was perfect. And I think more people should be paying attention to local politics. I'm terrible of that. I'm guilty of not paying attention to it myself.
Oh,
Uh,
I
you
didn't know
know,
that. But thank you for even saying that. I've been saying local politics are everything. I've been getting out the vote for over 25 years, even if I'm in a paid position or not, just as me seeing it as a tangible way. But early on, I will admit, when I started voting at 18, I've never missed an election. I would just, if I like, I would see your name, Chris Monahan, and I would vote for you because it sounded different. Or a
right?
woman's name, or I didn't have much political thought, but I knew it was important to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not big on electoral politics only because when you get to the bigger stages, it's so much about money, and it's so much about this weird political chess game that you have to play, where I think in local politics, with mayoral races or city council elections, even you get to make a direct impact because they're the ones that are kind of paying more attention to the community level problems. And I think if you can fix community level problems, it just builds outward from there, right? Like you gotta go ground up with it. And the other thing too that I kind of think is interesting about local elections in every city is something that works for Louisville. There's a good chance you can adapt that to Cincinnati or
Yes.
Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Philly or whatever. So I think there's worth in that, like I was looking at some of the stuff that someone like Councilwoman Shama Sawant was doing in Seattle,
Yeah.
where she was on the ground because she comes from the activist world, and she believes in organizing and an organized working class. So that sort of stuff is I hope would encourage somebody else from the activist world, from the grassroots world, that doesn't have like a political science background, that didn't work for the Hillary campaign in 2015 or what, you know what I mean? Like
I
those.
got stuff to tell you. I
Yeah.
love this. I did not expect this. So first, I want to make sure I get your name right. So it's Krish Mahan. It's
Yeah. Yeah, the
Krish
last
Mahan.
name, everybody pronounces. I've heard every iteration of the last name. It's just Mohan. It's a short A. Yeah.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. I love that. And I'm Shameeka Parrish-Wright, so you can imagine what I've been through.
Oh, I
Born in
bet.
the '70s, back then, late '70s, I was the only Shameeka I knew, and now there's many, including one of my daughters. I actually named her Shameeka, so I respect the names. There was a couple of times I asked my mother what was she thinking, but I definitely value it. So I want to always make sure I pronounce your name correctly. Here's what I could tell you: local politics are everything, and I actually turned Hillary's campaign down. So I have been doing some work. Yeah, I've worked as a campaign manager. I've worked as a campaign advisor. I consult on campaigns with my small business. I love politics because I see them as a way to change things, but I come from an activist background. So for me, it's about taking that action and taking the fist in the air to the policy change. And the way that
Mm,
you do that is by getting good people in office and getting them elected and holding their feet to the fire. That's the difference between me and a lot of candidates. I don't mind being held accountable. And all of my work has been about bringing people together across all lines of difference. And I think that what we can do now, we're in Kentucky, we're stuck with a closed primary. So you have to be Democrat or Republican to vote in May for our primaries. But
yep.
the primaries
Pennsylvania,
are
same
so
thing.
important. Yes, it's a huge thing. And I
Yeah.
even have people who are changing their party affiliation. Our deadline is Friday, but they're changing their party affiliation to be able to vote Democrat, to be able to vote for me. No other candidate can say that. But Chris, that is because of my work in the community. That's not just because I'm a Black woman running and I'm the first Black woman to run for mayor in Louisville. It's because of the work that I've done in these 20 more years that I've been out here. So you're right. It does take that. When you come from the community and you've been working to help rebuild or strengthen the community, you make sense. But I will tell you, history says to us, activists don't make good politicians. And I'm here to turn that notion on its head. I think that is where we went wrong. We need we need candidates and we need elected officials that have direct ties to the community, because I don't want to turn my back on people once I'm elected. I want to have them at every part of the every decision making, everything that I do. So I'm not only going to have a transition team, but my administration will have an accountability team made up of a group of people from all over Jefferson County to be with me, not just for that transition, but throughout my term. So that is a way that I can keep the issues right there. I don't want to be that disconnected from the community. And even with nonprofit work, I've been doing it for a long time. And I stay at those jobs 3 to 5 years. And they always ask me in an interview, why don't you stay? I said, I never plan to retire from a nonprofit. I think the longer you stay, the more insulated you become, and your reality changes because the people you're around, the funders, the foundations, all of that change. And I want to stay grounded to the people. And you don't hear many people talking like that because we're all taught to excel. You just go up, up, and up. So yeah, I was in a place where I can turn Hillary's campaign down because they wanted to dominate all of my time. Two, it just didn't add up. And three, they wanted to see all my other contracts, even though they weren't electoral contracts. They were like, they just wanted to kind of take over. And I was just at a place where I was like, no, I'm not doing it. If I'm going to carry Hillary's name on my back in Kentucky, there's some measurables that I need to happen. But I did get to meet Obama when he was first running here. I took my husband to meet him. We went to one of the fundraisers. I was just impressed by all the politics happen nationally. But I also know my work with across Kentucky means that we have more work to do with the rural and urban divide. And that's another reason why I'm running. Louisville, Kentucky is the economic generator for the whole state. But they want our money, but they don't want our voices anywhere else. They think we're too progressive. We're like an Allen compared to the rest of the state, but we're really not. We have a lot of issues that bind us and issues that we're all struggling with criminal justice reform, with food deserts, with healthcare. Everybody has the same issues. It's just that we've been touted as Emerald City in Louisville, and we're really not. We're really struggling. But the urban community has been pitted against us with people like Mitch McConnell, who's been in office almost long as I've been alive. Well, he's over 30 years, has been in office and has really not done the things that really lifts Kentucky up. So people are tired. And so that AM rhetoric of all that, it resonated with a lot of the rural communities because at least they were talking to them. What I've seen our Democratic Party do is avoid those areas. One, they consider them a waste of time. Two, they only looking at fidelity voters. And three, they have already painted us all red. And that's not the reality.
Yeah, that it's not just the Democratic Party. I mean, I would get shit on for coming to Louisville as a touring comic, and playing places like Kaiju or the Bardstown, these smaller places. But both of those places are both community oriented spots anyway. So that's where I want to perform. And from the years of touring through, what I've noticed about Louisville is, regardless, I don't think it's, I definitely agree with you. I think there's a lot of issues within Louisville, and every time I would come through, I would kind of be privy to a little bit more of what's actually going on around the city. And like I will say that it's a very open-minded city. Is being a lefty socialist comic and touring through the South for a decade is, you meet all sorts of people. And one of the people I met in Louisville he was a libertarian, conservative, like more fiscally conservative, socially liberal kind of veteran that was anti-war. So when I was talking about the military budget and the war budget and all this other stuff, that's where we connected. Did he agree with me about immigration? Probably not. Are we going to agree that capitalism is on a downward spiral and is taking the working class with it? Probably not. But we at least can agree that the military budget's too high, and we're not. So I think it's a very open-minded town where if you can find even one point that you agree with, and I think this is pretty true for a lot of places in the South, is if you can find one point that you can agree with, then it's a little bit easier to talk about your differences.
Yes. Agreed.
And I think people kind of dismiss that aspect of the South. They don't even want to try to find that one little aspect uh, of commonality. And I think in places like the South, there are a lot more people that are leaning left, that might not be, as left as yourself or me or Rolf or some of the other folks, but I don't think they need to be. There might be one or two things that they agree with you on, which then helps you open the dialogue with them, right? So
That
uh,
is that's where I've been. I say that we in the South we're proud. I actually lived in Alabama.
mm,
I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I stayed there my first 25 years of life. Well, there in Alabama, and we moved back to Cincinnati. I moved to Louisville, homeless, pregnant. I had 3 kids. I stayed in a hotel till they went up on my rates. So I've been on a bottom here.
mhm,
And then and so to lift myself up, which I didn't do alone, out of poverty took social services. It took human services. It took navigating the services that I'm trying to be the executive person over, right? And so it's important to know that. But I think as we move in the future, I really connect with what you're saying because, Chris, as we move in the future, it's going to be less about county lines and state lines and more about the issues that connect us. We have so many commonalities, and they've used those lines to divide us. We have to start seeing where we connect. We connect with over policing is a problem. We connect with poverty. I think poverty, and I always tell people that I'll always work on ending racist practices in our institutions and all over. But what I want to do, I'll be 45 Monday. What I want to do is work
happy
on
birthday.
poverty. I think poverty is something that you and I can hang up this call. We can go right outside our doors and do something direct about that. That's why direct aid and mutual aid is making sense to people. The stuff that happened with Sally Field and some of these national issues, people are like, I can take that direct aid and mutual aid to them directly and make an impact. Poverty is something that connects us and unite us across this nation. I know people that are in amazing affluent zip codes but are struggling, that are house poor. When I knock on their door, they're without utilities. So they're
Mm,
living in this nice big house, but they're struggling. They're house poor is what I call it. Now, and there's a lot of people who are struggling, who are on the cusp of being homeless. And with all the things that happen with COVID and everything else, we are in danger of you're right. The middle class has just been on a constant decline. Now, I ran for school board before in 2019. It was an open seat. It was vacated. So I said, we got to make sure we get somebody in there. I have 6 kids, four JCPS graduates. My 2 sons are still in school, and I ran. So when I ran, people are like, are you really sure you want to do this? I said, yes, we have too many missing voices from the
mm,
table where these decisions are being made for our children. I value public education. I was endorsed by the Democratic Socialist Group. I was also endorsed by Fairness Campaign and the local Ironworkers Union. So when I was endorsed by them, we were talking about when I first made the decision to run for mayor. In Louisville, Kentucky, I cannot run as a socialist and win this race. I have to be the Democrat that I am. Now, I've always been a Democrat, always true and true, voted out all across the board. But it's important for people to know that I understand where the socialist idea, I believe in that. I believe in making sure the people have what they need. I believe in doing everything we can to lift our communities up. I also have a reality. I can make a statement with this race, or I can take this opportunity and win and bring and usher in the changes that are need to happen. Louisville is one of those places where we still have a mayor strong city. A lot of places are trying to take that power away. I hate to call it power, but take those responsibilities away. And so we can still make a huge amount of changes here in this mayoral role. That's why this race is so pivotal. Our last mayor has been there for 3 terms. Now, that same mayor has appointed me as a human relations commissioner. That same mayor has called on me and his office countless times to help with outreach, to help connect, to help calm things down when the civil unrest was crazy in the streets. And so I'm telling people, as a manager, as a business owner, as a woman, I've already been a mayor in my family, in my community, in my church, everywhere. What I'm trying to do is take a voice that has never been held at the executive level. If we really think about this, and as I've been doing my race research, mayorships were set up for rich white businessmen. That's why
Mm.
the requirements aren't that much. They usher in their friends' contracts. It's all about taking care of each other. So it's not a threat that I couldn't do the job. The threat is that I'm not a rich white businesswoman. I see people brag that they bought all their kids cars for Christmas. I bought all my grown daughters air fryers, and that was an accomplishment to buy each one of them an air fryer for Christmas. I'm working class, and I have always been. Even and then when I wasn't working class, I was homeless and I was on the streets. And so I understand what that means to navigate those services, to try to build yourself up, to try to use what's available. And we just don't have that voice there. And there's nothing against rich white businessmen. They're going to always be there, but they've been in charge this whole time. So all these other candidates are establishment picks. I'm not an establishment pick, but I'm a chance to do something different. And that's why my campaign means something. If it was nothing, I was the first to announce. Nobody would announce that early. Nobody, they're like, what the hell are you thinking, Shameeka? But I got this notion. I'm telling you, Chris, I was in Atlanta. We had failed to get Mitch out of office. My dear friend, State Representative Scott, I turned 45 on Monday. So it was around my birthday. They put a call out to have more people door knocking on doors in Georgia to flip the seats for Ossoff and Warnock. So
Yeah.
I drive down there for my 44th birthday with one of my daughters, and Representative Scott drove with her daughter. And we get down there, we're door knocking. They say, where are you from? I said, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. They said, you drove all the way down here just to die? I said, yes, this is what I do. When Trayvon Martin was killed, I was there. When Mike Brown was killed, I was there. I show up and I want to be a service to that community. They were like, oh my God. I said, yeah, plus we failed to get Mitch out of offices, and this is another chance to reduce his power. So yes, I need to be here. So while I was there, I got a call from someone that works for the mayor's office that says, Shameeka, I just want to give you a heads up. They chose Chief Shields to be our next chief. Now, normally I'm all for getting women elected in amazing positions. So it's not that she's a woman and as a chief, it's where she's come from and what has already experienced. And I felt like what we needed was somebody that was rooted in our city to help bring the healing, to help build the relationships that what needed. LMPD is tied to too much corruption. For somebody from the outside, they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't have the same respect to really make the changes. And so anyway, when I heard that notion, I said, you know what? We're not going to be able to seal in these changes if we don't have the right person in office as mayor. I said, you know what? I'm going to run for mayor. I didn't even tell my friend, State Representative Scott, or my daughter that's laying on the bed next to me. They were like, really? You're just going to put it on social media and not even tell us? And that's what I did, Chris. And that's what set the ball of fire last January.
See, you brought up poverty. That's one of the things that every time I've come through Louisville, that's something that somebody's always brought up is the Highlands. That's the big posh neighborhood. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the big posh neighborhood in Louisville. So, and there's places like that in Pittsburgh too, where there's a lot of overdevelopment, property values going up for no reason. But places that have had stable rent for decades, all of a sudden it's 2-3 times higher now, because a Whole Foods popped up in your neighborhood, kind of, and that exacerbates the homeless crisis that we're now again going to see because of the pandemic and what they're doing with real estate through the pandemic. What is your plan to kind of tackle that problem to prevent the increase of homelessness in Louisville?
So I will say I've been to Pittsburgh. I was there for a Net Roots conference. I spoke on a panel with a bunch of progressive DAs, Mr. Krasner, Chessa, all these people. But during one of the lunchtime sessions, someone invited me to a restaurant where there's a fight to increase the minimum wage. So I actually went to a protest there about, hey, making sure that people are paid well, and ate at a restaurant where they're paying people a livable wage. And that's right up my alley from my work with Jobs for Justice. Yeah, and my work with the local union. So shout out to Pittsburgh. And I see a lot of similarities with Pittsburgh and Louisville. So thanks for mentioning that. And with Cincinnati. Cincinnati actually has a Highlands neighborhood that's also connected to the University of Cincinnati. So when I moved here, I automatically was drawn to the Highlands because it was a mixed, diverse community, people moving around, people out all day. So everything you said is true. So for me, what I experience is, as most cities and emerging cities, I think we're number 16 or 17 now because of the county merger. I see a lack of affordable housing. So one of the things I want to do is institute a lot of opportunities for every zip code to have opportunities for affordable housing and affordable home ownership. Any zip code that we're in, you should be able to get affordable housing. A lot of the times people were pushed out. Now, with like most river cities, gentrification hits them the hardest, especially downtown. So now that we have so many rich and affluent people who want to come downtown, that should be easier to make sure that there's opportunities for people all over. And so making sure that any developer contracts, all of that, get permission from the communities that they're in. That means a community buy-in, higher at livable wages and above, local union labor first, but make sure that the communities have, because everybody wants something shiny, new, and pretty in their neighborhood. People got to stop thinking when we speak out against gentrification that we're like, no, we don't want nothing new. No, people want that. They just want to be a part of it. They want to know that once it's built, they'll be able to be there. And so my work, but even before I came to Louisville, was around gentrification in Cincinnati. I'm from over the Rhine, but right downtown is where it went through a whole bunch of gentrification. I knocked on those doors and told them that less than 5% of you would be back here. Now it's less than 1%, Krish. 1% of the people that were originally there, including my mother, who now lives here in Louisville with me. So the first thing would be is to developers, we are a developer strong city. There's no way around it. That, a mayor can't stop all the development that's happening. We don't have that much power and control. But what we can do is push for the developers to be inclusive of the community and the leadership, and making sure whatever comes into that city, the community is knowledgeable. There's an environmental impact assessment done, and they know what's going to happen on the other end. And they get a choice to have a percentage of that be set for income based. And I want it to be at 30% or less. Like, we need to make sure that people are able to live and afford. I remember being homeless and getting on my feet. You're scared. You're scared to report anything, because then you feel like the rug is pulled out from under you. We have enough resources where we can make sure that we give people a buffer that lets them, hey, I can start to excel. I can graduate from college. I can make money. And then I can gradually get to the point where I want to be. Everybody wants to be middle class or above, even the poorest of the poor. Everybody wants to be able to afford where they live. We're right now, and my husband and I just bought a house in Shively in 2018, and it's a mixed community. On one side of us, we have a couple that's from the Philippines. On another side, we have a Black couple. We have white couples. We have mixed communities work. I love mixed communities. I grew up in mixed communities. And I think that what we have to have is more opportunities. So more affordable housing. We are short over 30,000 units. So, I can't promise all that in the first year, but at least we're making more advantages toward it. So fixing what already works. We've taken a lot of our old schools and we've turned them into residential places that are affordable. So looking at more opportunity, there's churches, there's old abandoned buildings, there's strip malls. So looking at what we already have, doing the assessments on what's already there and working, and then working to eliminate that shortage that we have, because I'm worried that it's going to grow in a rate that none of us can keep up with. We have ARP funding coming in. I'm already using my campaign to talk to the community, to push community leaders, to push on our elected officials to use that money the best way possible. We've already had decisions made that a great deal of that money is going towards affordable housing. Because my thing is, if I don't tell them and push on how they can spend that money right now, my administration will be dealing with the fallout and will be blamed for how that money got misspent or how it didn't work out. So my goal is to use this campaign to push them right now to make those decisions. And I already see it happening. So making those decisions to invest the money into that, direct services, direct aid, mutual aid. So groups who are doing the money. We got an issue where we only fund the bigger groups. But if you have a program where you're getting 25 people housed every year consistently, then we should be supporting that program, because those programs are going to talk to people we may never cross paths with. We have other entities that are doing good work, but their numbers isn't representative of what's really the need is. We have a great deal of homeless youth, and so my youth were homeless, but they still were able to stay in their same school. So supporting our local school board. I don't want to take over. There's an initiative where some mayors, it used to be over 70 something years ago, mayors had a lot of control over public education. I don't think we're ready to take full control over that, especially right now. But I think we can support and use our influence to build up the programming and the supportive services needed to keep people housed. You keep people housed, they feel more secure, then you can start to strive. If your hierarchy needs aren't met, you don't care. You don't care about anything. So using this role to do that and pushing back on people who just want to corporatize and privatize everything and not have the things that our community needs. So I'm really coming in as the only mayor that's talking about changing the things that people feel when they walk inside their house every day. And then everybody wants people housed, because if we got some people who are letting houseless people sleep in their backyards. We got to start offering incentives for people that are doing the right thing. We don't want to create another Skid Row, but that's what's starting to happen, right? And so we got to make sure that we're getting in there. And the reality, Chris, that a lot of people don't want to talk about is there will always be some people who don't want to be housed, right? They like living off the grid, but we can offer services. Louisville used to be what considered as a homeless capital. We had a book which tells you how to live on the streets for 30 days, where to get your meals at, where to get your mail at, where to get a shower at. We still provide a lot of those services. So we're real service heavy, because none of the homeless shelters, and I love them, I've been through them, they're not designed to end homelessness. But we can make sure that things are regulated, there's access, there's safety. And to be honest, some of those shelters are hard to stay in because of all the rules. And we understand that there's rules, but also there's people who have a lot of mental needs. And so really having a case manager, anybody that navigated homelessness successfully had a series of successful transitions. And that's all my family had. We just had steps that we took. We had, I had a case manager. I had 3 case managers that were the ages of my older daughter. And they said to me, why am I your case manager? You're teaching me. And so having that, I said to them in one of the classes, because they always want to put you in these, mine wasn't based on domestic violence or alcohol or drug abuse. I simply just did not have enough money to pay bills. And so there's a window of that where all they want to do is put you in these financial classes. So I was in the financial literacy class, and I said, it's interesting to me that our own president, that's back when we had 45, our president has had multiple bankruptcies, but he doesn't have to go through any financial planning courses. But I'm telling you, I just ran out of money to pay my bills, and you want me to and so then they started inviting me. I was at tables with millionaires. I was the poorest person at that table, but I was able to bring direct lived experience. And so I joined the Homeless Coalition Board. And so I actually helped make some of the decisions on the Continuum of Care Board as the only person on that board who's directly impacted by houselessness. And on that board are developers, are the housing development, HUD, all these people. So what I've been doing is trying to make sure we all work together and giving a realistic approach on how their programs and ideas. So I have a whole bunch of ideas on how to make it better. The first thing is to reduce the need, and that we can do that by using what's out there, improving what we can, and creating what needs to happen next.
Would something like a Housing First program work in Louisville, or are there not enough empty, or kind of, I don't even know what the appropriate term for it is, other than abandoned, because certain cities,
there's plenty of that. There's plenty of
yeah.
It does work. We have some forms of housing first, but what I don't know what city our city government models after, because there's sister cities. I always tell them, look north, but nobody wants to look north here.
Well, Utah made significant strides, and then they canceled the program because they deemed it like a failure or something, some bullshit reason. I mean, it was like 90% of the homeless rates went down.
Yes.
They held jobs, they were getting regular counseling, their mental health was improving. I mean, and 90% within the first year, that's no joke. That's a successful program, regardless of how you're trying to measure success. But that to me, all that said is, and Utah's, again, that's another really conservative state.
Yes.
For them to try such a progressive initiative, and then to abandon it for no reason, to me, it's just like, you didn't want to admit this works.
And they don't want to put the time in for the implementation period. We say, oh, we got an equity plan, we have a racial equity plan, we have a plan, but you have to give it the time that it takes. We have several council people, like Councilman Corey Arthur, some other council folks who are really pushing a Housing First version for Louisville, right? That's the thing. Nobody wants the cookie cutter what happens, but I've been saying we can take things that are working in these other cities, a lot of them are similar to Louisville, and make it work for here. Now we have a lot of land that can be developed. We have a lot of abandoned properties. Louisville Metro government owns quite a bit of property. JCPS owns quite a bit of property. I've seen where in other cities they did where, you can get the building and get it for 5 years. What happened is we had a land bank set up, but with the land bank, you can purchase the property, but you have to show that you have all the money in the bank to get it fixed right then. And so some of those things are sweat equity and labor of love. And so it's going to take time to get it. So give people time. So I'm all about extending the implementation period, or even like the application period, so that people have enough time to be able to get the resources needed to fix it. We have Youth Build here who does a great job in working to help fix our seniors housing and making sure that people who have housing that is almost unlivable, going in there and making sure that they're able to fix it. So yes, one of the things that I plan to do is make sure that we bring that to the table first. We have to deal with our balance. We have to deal with our housing, and those two things are interchangeable, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, to me, other than, if there aren't enough properties around around the
Yeah,
cities, like, to me, the Housing First initiative just makes sense. You have a bunch of empty properties that the city's not doing anything with, that the bank is kind of holding them hostage for, but why not turn it into something that's going to help people and improve the lives of countless. I mean, I can tell you, in Pittsburgh, just driving around, the homeless population has gone up. As a touring comic that was partially homeless,
yeah,
it's hard, like, it's really, really hard, to maintain, even in Pittsburgh, where like we have really cheap rent. There was still a lot of time where it was very, very difficult to pay all of my bills on time.
yeah.
And then it was, but like the early years of learning, and it wasn't like I wasn't working hard or anything. It wasn't like I wasn't touring nonstop, and that's the other kind of big stigma against homeless people is, oh, you're a bum, you don't have a job,
Right.
you're an alcoholic. And it's like, I mean, a majority of the people that are homeless now have jobs.
Work.
Yeah, their significant others probably have jobs too, and two incomes together isn't
Ain't
enough
enough.
to, pay rent, pay bills, keep up, with, like, put food on the table. So and that's a major problem, and then now they're making this ridiculous claim that, oh, inflation is on the rise because working class people are asking to be treated properly, and it's like, nah, man, inflation's been around. Minimum wage has been stagnant for a decade. Like,
For far too long. And then that's that's one of our arguments with the moratoriums. It's like we have to have those. You already have a housing crisis, and then you want to risk more people get homeless. That, as a business owner, I understand that there's a bunch of landlords and developers whose money is tied up as well. But to me, it's always cheaper to keep them if you can, and it makes sense to add to what people can bring home. People want to pay their rent on time, but when you're
mhm.
hit with all your bills at once and you have to pull them out the hat on what you can afford, you and I know that best. You have to make tough decisions every month. And when you're surviving like that, you're not focused on thriving. It just got to the point where now, like, we're in a home and we pay a mortgage. It took a while for me to get comfortable, Chris. I was uncomfortable for a long time because I've
Yeah.
been struggling with homelessness for a long time. Even when we were younger, my mom struggled with it. So I went to 17 schools and 4 colleges. So because we moved, not because of bad behavior or anything else, it's because my mom, it was hard on her, and she didn't have affordable housing. And when she was a single mom, it was a struggle. That story is for a lot of people. And you're right. I work for the Bail Project. We bail out a lot of clients, and the number one issue is housing. And then a lot of them are employed. A lot of them are employed or employable. But when you don't know where you're going to lay your head, when you don't know how you're going to get back to court or to work, that is the struggle. And Louisville has a transportation issue too. So unlike Pittsburgh, you have mass transit of some
Mm.
form. We don't have any. We only have Metro bus, which I want to work on improvement every bus stop to quality, to having broadband Wi-Fi to having places you can plug and charge. All those things make busing a viable choice. Right now, to take a bus in this city automatically means that you are at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
You only take
Pittsburgh's no
that bus
different.
if you got to. It is. And when I travel to other cities, and I'm on a bus with mayors and council peoples and basketball players, and it's a whole difference. But when you're here, it's a straight determinant of poverty. And so
Yeah.
I want to improve that. And also, we had a plan over 20 years ago, the old board of aldermen, where the mayor made a choice to say, the federal government said we can give you this money for bridges, or we can give you this money for light rail. Well, the Muhammad Ali Airport was set up to receive light rail, but that plan was put on the back burner, and we went to work on our bridges. Now, nothing wrong with our bridges, but we have bridges, but people are still struggling with transportation to get around, and you literally almost need a car. And it makes it hard. So when you have to factor in that, our insurance rates are through the roof. All the other things that come with that, is everybody's a car accident away from some bad financial issue. And so it is. So those are the things that I want to work on. I can say all the Miss America stuff, but I'm talking about real tangible stuff that we can make a difference in year one and year two. So our mayorships are 4-year terms. And so there's a great deal that we can do. And there's no reason why a developer or the business community can't work with us. Of course, I want tourism to thrive, and Derby. All of those things won't go. They're still going to do well, Krish. Nothing's going to happen to them. What's happening is those of us who are struggling are going to continue to struggle worse. And so when I'm talking to voters about why you want to think about that, when you see an establishment candidate that we have, that is about money. Those people donated $1 million to that campaign because they want to keep things the same. They don't want to improve things. It goes back to your original point. It has become, you can buy our elections. I am a threat because of all the work, that the community work that's happened, all the work that we've been able to do. And so now I can't buy all this earned media. I cannot afford it with this campaign. This is a people powered campaign. Every dollar, as a Black candidate, you already know every dollar has to count 10 times more than any other dollar. But it's important, and I'm conditioning people to give, to donate to campaigns, to not just be bought out by the glitter and gold, to have a tangible person there that they can reach and they can talk to, and I'm not just going to be running around town kissing babies. I want to get in there in that first 100 days and get to work. I love the babies, though. I love all the babies, but I want to get to work.
The babies will be there.
The babies will be there.
I know you brought up police corruption, and which again, it's like that's a national epidemic, but each city is kind of. What's interesting, and I kind of want to ask this in two parts, I guess. It's interesting that each city has approached police brutality and police corruption and defunding the police in their own way. Where Minneapolis did it in one way. I think Austin took like $100 million, and hotels that were being vacated, they turned into like apartments for homeless people to help, like to fund their own housing first initiative. With all that said, it's difficult for a lot of people, especially a lot of people on the left, to trust the police in any form. So with what happened in Louisville with the Breonna Taylor case, how do we restructure law enforcement in a city like Louisville, where the community's relationship and law enforcement's relationship is so fractured because of everything that's happened with police brutality? How do you kind of fix that, and how do you make sure that someone like Breonna Taylor can get justice, like moral justice, not what happened with the grand jury and everything?
Chris, thank you for that. I've been saying from the beginning, justice comes in many forms. So I definitely believe in that. And here's the thing. When people are dealing with police corruption and accountability, people want to be treated fair. They want equity. Nobody has been really asking for revenge. And that's something that we should be thankful for. Like, people are saying, treat me right. Our young people are saying, we're not going to stand for that. We're not going to use respectability politics to deal with you when our very skin or our age is being treated as a weapon as soon as you come upon us. I saw it doing the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement at Injustice Square. That was my idea. That was me using every resource I can to help hold that down with a great deal of people from all backgrounds, even people who worked for our current administration, who came out there and said, look, I can't be out here like you, Shameeka, but I want to let you know I support you. What do you need? How can I help on the back end? So what I saw was that a lot of the young people were ready to be our first level of protection. And I believe every community should have the opportunity and the resources and the training and the support of the police department to provide their first level of protection. Part of that is I thought I was being a genius, but apparently I had came up with like 8111 I just think we need a whole nother alternate number to call so that we can decide if it's a trauma response or if it's a response that needs the police. The police will always be there on the outskirts, but when do we actually need to call them in? And I was floored by I forget what city it was, but it was a woman walking with her kids and she was scared of the police and she had her 2 kids with her. And I don't know if she had a knife or a weapon or what, but they killed her right in front of those 2 kids. And I said, I deal with a lot of my family has mental health issues. They deal with all kinds of stuff. I have an uncle that comes to every holiday with a different girlfriend. And by the end of that night, he's arguing with that girlfriend. Once he starts to drinking, we put him out.
Right.
You know, if he acts well, we wrap him in a blanket, throw him in one of our cars and take him. And he's all right. We don't call the police on my uncle because we don't know if my uncle will make it back, you know? And so there's a lot of Hispanic, Latinx. I want to respect how people want to be addressed, but there's a lot of brown, international, immigrant communities who are struggling when they're dealing with domestic violence issues and not wanting to call the police because they want to see their loved one again, or at least if they out their house, they want to know that they're safe somewhere and they're alive. And they know that once they call the police, all of that changes. So anyway, I thought I was being a genius. I said, you know what? I was telling my dear friend Kalila Collins, you know what? We need 811 or something, some different number. Then I was riding on the highway and found out that 811 means call before you dig. So that number was already used. 311 means information and call for that. I said, here's the problem. 911 has been programmed into us and since we were babies. So when I met with the interim chief Gentry before the new chief came, she said, Shameeka, you know, tell your people, she gave me a packet of information like this thick. She said, these are all the unsubstantiated calls that we get to 911. I said, but that's not the fault of the people if that's what's been programmed to call if the cat's in a tree or to call if they see somebody walking past their house. People are doing what they've been programmed to do. So you can't blame the people for calling 911. There should have been another system set up a long time ago for a trauma response, for a security response, for a maintenance, whatever it is. So anyway, she said, and when my people come, one thing is they're going to ask you to leave. They're going to strongly tell you to leave, and then they're going to remove you. And they have guns. And she said, when my people show up, they have guns. I said, I understand that. I almost became a police officer. I have families that are police officers. But when I was trying to be a police officer, it was to de-escalate. It was to have non-arrest interactions. It was to make a difference. Of course, I was 23, and I did not understand the depth of what happens when you with policing. But I really thought that I would be becoming a police officer to make a difference. And I said, I believe that's how people start out. And then they start to bleed blue, where nothing matters but what's in blue. But that is a job that they chose to do. And if you're too scared to serve certain communities, if you don't want to live in the community you serve, then that isn't the job for you. The police should live in the community. And that's something that I will support, and I support incentives for. And we have that now in our new contract. They get a bonus now if they live in the community they serve. The problem is little racist Billy parents or Bobby or whoever tells them, go ahead and be a police officer. And then on some of our poor communities, we like, you the police, that's a problem, you know. And but we got to have people that look like us, that are serving us, but not just a look, because it has to be people with strong values and a strong mission to have a de-arrest, to be able to understand that we don't want people arrested if they don't need to be arrested. Most people get caught up in criminal justice through traffic stops. So what stops are worthy? My friend Sam Dubose, that was my friend from 16 years old. He was killed at a traffic stop, shot in the head because he was missing a front license plate in Cincinnati. Now, where he was killed, was where he would pick me up to go to the drive-in. And I will tell you, Chris, when I was in college at University of Cincinnati, we didn't even stop for the University of Cincinnati police. We didn't consider, they were way off of campus. So we were like, so the fact that what happened is because they had a shortage, they also employ University of Cincinnati police officers. So he had that authority, but he followed Sam from the store. I saw the path in my head, and I literally had just talked to Sam 2 days before then. But that shows you that mentality in the training. So the training has to be ongoing, and the training needs to be from communities that they serve. They have to have from the universities. I don't care who it is, but it has to be people that actually live in those communities. I don't need no yoga director or mediator from 2 states over to come in to tell our police on how they should interact with brown and black communities. So that's another thing that I would be focused on, making sure that training is ongoing. It has to happen all the time and they need mental health checks. They need mental health checks. They need drug tests. We did get drug tests in this new contract. Their records need to stay there. There needs to be a national database that if you were fired for abusing people, you should not be hired as a police officer anywhere else, because that's what they do. I'm on the Savvy Civil Service Board. So now I actually help approve new police officers by asking them questions about things and what most of them come from other jurisdictions. So we got to make sure that we're tracking how they are able to travel over. So I will say thank you to the Breonna Taylor family for making sure that a lot of these reforms were included in their settlement. My job as mayor is going to be to make sure we actually do the things that we agreed to do. Because here's the thing, Chris, we're paying on the front end and on the back end. When we're sued for the corruption, our police officer has molested and raped kids. And not only killed people, they're harming our youth. So when I first started the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement, I was like, and this was before I decided I would run for office, I was like, you know what? We just need to fire them all and start over. I realized that I've seen a lot of mayoral candidates move to, they were strong on police reform and then they changed. I'm not backing off. I'm standing with accountability. So people say, well, when you become mayor, a lot of them will quit. The only ones that are going to quit is the ones who don't want to treat people fairly, who don't want to operate with equity. I understand that they have a job. I did security. I almost became a police officer, but that does not give you a badge to kill. You don't get to be judge, jury, and executioner. So the best thing that I can do as mayor is push for accountability, get rid of people who are not able to treat people fairly immediately. There should be no discussion about that. And so I did talk to our current mayor, and he said, Shameeka, you got to deal with 67C. So I plan to have our lobbyists in Frankfurt dealing with what we can in the legislative level, but what I can do that's under my power. The chief is somebody that is elected, that is appointed by the mayor, and making sure every department has people that has a real racial equity lens that is focused on being fair, and make sure that they have the respect throughout the department. And I don't know what our police have on our mayor, but there's a lot of fear and intimidation. I mean, my son is like, Mom, I don't want them to kill you. And there was a mayor's race years ago where one of the mayoral candidates here in Louisville was talking about doing something with the police, and he came out of one of those meetings and his car was on fire. I realized that being strong on accountability and anti-corruption makes me a threat to some of them, but I'm not here to take away their jobs. We are not at a place where we can eliminate our police force. I think that abolition is a strategy, and it has to happen over time. It scares even Black, brown, and poor people to talk about no police, then what's next? I think we start with accountability. We start making sure our actions match our words. We make sure that we have the right leadership there that is leading by example. We start making sure that people, when they see something bad happening, you don't stand by and watch somebody be on strangle somebody to death or sit on their neck like George Floyd. If you have police officers that are going to stand by and watch that, that is wrong. So the last thing I'll tell you is I want to make sure that what happened during the inauguration for Biden and Kamala and our vice president, Kamala Harris, is they went through an extensive background check for anybody that was going to be around them or participating. I want that because our local police have been tied to the KKK and to other racist groups, and I think we have to pull them out from the root. They're gonna expose themselves. They already have, and the ones that make it through the background checks and all of that during the constant mental health checks, the constant training, the reorganization of the whole department, that's going to pull out the rest of those weeds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
I
was a
think
lot. I'm sorry.
no, that was fantastic. But that's also basically what a lot of us on, on the streets, a lot of the activists that I talk to is this is what they want. It's more about accountability. It's more about restructuring what it means to be a police officer. And like you said, I do think 911 is too rooted in our heads. But how many other than some grandparents across the country who's really got a rotary phone or something connected to their wall? If it's all on the cell phone, I don't see why there can't be some kind of an app or a button that you press for non-emergency calls that's right on your home screen. Something like that could be very easily implemented by
We
any
have a
of these
pilot
departments.
program. So that friend that I was talking to, Kalila
Hmm.
Collins, she was contracted by, she was out there with me when we were doing Injustice Square. She owns a house here in Louisville, but she lives in New Orleans. And so she was contracted by the University of Spalding, and they have a contract, a pilot program where they have an alternate number that people can call, so they can call for a trauma response. And that's what I've been asking for. When I lived in, before we bought this house, I lived at Hemlock and Southern. When I lived in that neighborhood, it's a very bad neighborhood for a lot of people. I asked my council person, I said, we need mobile trauma response units. I said, I remember when I lived in the projects, when I had my first baby and was in college, they would be these units that come through, like mammogram trucks and medical trucks and all, and they would come through the community. They would park, and you can get on there and get your needs met. There's all kind of resources. I said we need those kind of mobile trauma response units to come, not just when something is bad, but when things are going good too. Our young people need to know what happens when they choose to use a gun, when they choose to use a knife, because right now the police have to accept their part in our gun violence. The police play a major part in the gun violence we see all over this nation, because when they show up, they have a gun. And when you have a gun, when our young people see that, they're like, oh, everybody's mood change, everybody's attitude, their physical demeanor, everything changes when the police come. So that's putting it in the kid's head. If I have a gun, I have power. If I have power, I have control. Police have to own their part in that. They're part of the reason why our gun balance is bad. Second of that, when you only come in when it's a negative response or to go and arrest somebody, that is the only language that they see. Like it's like when you watch the Dirty Harry movies, which I did used to watch a lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When that person comes, they're coming to take care of business if something happens. So on these mobile trauma response units, I want professionals, ER folks, trauma folks, mental health specialists, social workers, and they're there. And then the community provides the protection for them, right? So they might say, well, who's going to protect the people on the unit? That'll be community that the community elects. The community would elect the people who, and they will rotate out, because you don't want to, you leave people in one place too long, it creates a sense of power and control, and we don't want to duplicate that. So they would elect them to terms. They will be in paid positions, and they would help protect the units. Those units, kids can go in there from anywhere, and families to do homework, to get advice. Because guess what? I told you, we just de-escalate with my uncle. Somebody's doing it right now, Chris. Somebody is right now stopping somebody from going to shoot somebody. I've done it. I've stopped my family from shooting people. I've talked them out, talked them off the ledge, talked them out of committing suicide. Somebody's already doing that work. Why don't we lift up that work? So we have these mobile trauma response units come in, and they come in regularly. So then they build that relationship. So then when something is wrong, people feel comfortable. But on these units, when they do come in, the trauma surgeon shows them, here's what happens when you shoot a gun. Here's why when you shoot a gun, you can't take it back. The knife, here's what happens here's what we have to do to save a life. People don't want people to necessarily die. They just want them out of their way. They just want them to be safe. And people keep saying, well, what are you going to do about all the guns? The police are not taking guns in action. They're confiscating guns from people who don't understand our gun laws, who think that I can still carry a gun, even though I am a convicted felon, to protect myself, because in my community, I need a gun for safety. We are a strong gun-toting state that the guns we confiscate, we send upstate, we have them recommissioned, and we put them right back out in the damn streets. In the pawn shops, we put them, and guess what? The pawn shops kids, some of them are caught on opioids. So then guess what? If they're looking for something of high value, guns have the highest resale value. They go and steal and sell the weapons out. So we're recycling the same guns. And then with the opioid crisis, that just keeps on dumping on top of each other. So we need real gun backs. And I'm not talking about offering no $25 Kroger card. I'm talking about, if I can, you're gonna give me a $25 Kroger card and I can sell this gun for 400 online easily. And so we have to do things that make sense, that speaks to the youth that we're dealing with. These old things that we did, we can tweak them, but they're not going to be the cookie cutter fix that we need. We need to come in those communities regularly, talking to people, so we build up the relationship, walk those communities, walk the beats, and then on these units, have professionals there who can talk to people about, this is what happened. And I know it works, Chris, because I have a direct lived experience. We were on our way to Miami for vacation. Someone shot out our window. And the neighborhood, I guess because I put a little library there and we use that as a trading post for books and supplies, they knocked on our door. They said, Miss Shameeka, somebody shut out your window. I was like, man, damn. I delayed our trip. I canceled our trip for a day and all of that stuff. The next day, I'm waiting for the insurance. The insurance approved the replacement of the window, but I had to wait for the cops. I had to do a police report for the insurance to pay for it. So after the cops leave, a young man comes up to me, hand is bandaged up, and it's like you can see the blood coming through it. He tries to hand me $260. He said, Miss Shameeka, I know who you are. I know you are in this community. I just want to tell you, I'm sorry I shut out your window, but I was being robbed. Do you know how floored I was? I was like, I don't need your money. The insurance takes care of it. But thank you. You didn't have to give a damn. He didn't have to care that my window was shut out. People's windows are shut out all the time. But I know that he had to make a decision. And at that moment, he needed to protect himself. So we need to talk to them. We cannot treat guns like we did abstinence. The people are still going to have them and deal with. We need gun responsibility. We need gun laws that match. We got to stop marking these young men, because if I get caught with a gun at 19, you take that gun away from me, and I'm not in use. You just happen to pull over my friend and I have it on me. I'm marked. So then when I get 30 or 40 and you're my age and you're like, I got a family, I want to make sure I have protection for my family, I want to be a responsible gun owner. Guess what, Chris? You can't. You're marked for life. So we need to have realities and diversion programs that match what's going on with our young people. It does not match, and it does not match them when they get older. So they can't run for office. They can't own, you know what I mean? Like vote sometime. So they've already been marked. That we got to eliminate. Or what we're doing is we're marking them, and we're handicapping them for the rest of their life, all because they made a decision because of their community that they live in, that they feel unprotected in, that they pulled a gun. And so our police is proud. Yeah, we're taking all these guns on the street. That's one part of that. But the other part is you're also marking a lot of these men, which are usually young, poor, and black or brown. And then they're confused. And then guess what? If they're in a bad community, they're going to get a gun again to protect themselves because they don't want to die for being robbed. So anyway, I know these things because I am a gun violence victim. I survived gun violence. I survived a lot of those things because I had programming, because I had faith. I had the faith community. I had people reaching back for me. I had education. Those are the things that helped me live to this point. And so we got to make sure that we're doing it. There's a lot of unspoken rules that you and I have. Like you don't shoot up the bus stop. There's things that we've been taught just naturally. We got to make sure there's a code. So one of the things I want to do is set up a code. I'm working with some local artists and some local sports celebrities, because they listen to them. Because I could be telling them everything I could tell them, and I drive a minivan, and they're like, but what I'm gonna do when I make it, right? but the celebrities, they'll listen to them, and they said, Shameeka, that makes sense because they want what I have. We got to have them on board, and we develop points of unity like we did for the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement. Things that we do, how we handle people, how we make sure that we're taking care of each other, and we get these young people to sign on to that, and then we offer them opportunities. We keep them busy, and that is a way that we can stop the violence.
Yeah, you got to get someone like Killer Mike.
Yes. Yes.
And then he offers you a $50 Kroger card for your gun. That's I feel like that's the solution.
That's true. It's true.
It's just Killer Mike and a $50 Kroger card. Right. I think we solved guns in this country.
Exactly, and decriminalization needs to come with it. So if I turn this gun into you, I don't want to come back if there's bodies on it. Like, don't come back. I don't know what happened. Just keep it. We have to be realistic. Our young people they've seen us like say one thing and do another. They don't respect that. How you build respect is being consistent, and like I said, make your words match your actions. That's how I do it. And if I get it wrong, I say I got it wrong,
Yeah.
and then I listen to them. So I plan to have young people at from 16 to 30 on these decision making tables, these boards, these planning commissions, because I'm tired of us making, oh, this is what they need. No, let them tell us
Yeah.
what they need, and
Right.
let us be a resource to make it happen.
Right. I know I don't want to take over too much of your time. Do you have time for one more
Yeah, I'm
question?
sorry. My
Oh,
answers
no,
are
no.
long.
I love it. That's also perfect because it makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to like pull. I've done interviews where like there's been one or two interviews where I'm like, I'm pulling
Yeah.
for them to say something like this is well, you brought up mental health as a core a core of the homeless issue of the police brutality and kind of changing the structure of law enforcement in general. It is having a mental health aspect, which I wholeheartedly agree with. You know, well, I think this was maybe 3 years ago. I was with my ex-wife at the time and everything, and I had a comic coming into town, and he was going to crash with us. And he called me and he said, I'm about 45 minutes away. And I said, great. Don't come onto my street because there's like 7 cop cars on my street. And I don't know why, but they all have their guns drawn, and I'm not sure what the hell is going on. So, like, if you I'll let you know when it's clear. Well, basically, what happened was there was an elderly black man who has schizophrenia. They don't have insurance. They can't get his medication. So, the neighbors know that sometimes he will start arguments on the porch and yell very loudly. And that's just something that he does. And I guess a passerby in the neighborhood called 911 because they thought it was a domestic violence situation. It wasn't. It was just he was having an episode and his family was trying to take care of it. It's difficult to deal with someone in that state, but 7 cop cars showed up for this guy with their guns drawn. Fortunately, everything kind of de-escalated and everything. But to me, it was just if one, if the cops were trained to learn how to de-escalate, that would be one thing. Two, cops shouldn't be called for that. That should be a counselor. That should be a mental health professional. Someone that knows what to do in those sort of situations. But the other thing that I thought of was this wouldn't even be an issue if we had universal health care.
That's right.
Just get his medication for the diagnosis that he has so that he can take care of himself. So if he's not taking his pills, the neighbors know about it and it can be kind of taken care of, but the community in and of itself. That part's a little bit of a tangent. My point to that is New York State is pushing for universal health care in New York State. I think there's some push in Pennsylvania for state level universal health care. It seems like that's the direction a lot of these issues are falling.
Yes.
Cannabis became a state to state, and now it might even become city to city, county to county. They're going to kind of deal with it differently. Do you feel like healthcare would benefit from that on a local level if you could put Louisville, if you're a resident of Louisville, you have health insurance? Do you think that is a better way to win that fight than try to do it on a national level?
Yes. No, let me be clear. I support Medicare for all. I support universal health care, universal child care. I mean, it's how we treat our the folks that are mentally challenged, the folks that are dealing with substance use issues, our seniors, our young people is an indicator of the success and the survival of our city and how people can thrive. What we've been talking about all this time is people surviving. But
Mhm.
if we want to move people to thriving, That is the only way I see that happening. So I do support Medicare for all. We've had some rallies here. We have single payer health care that some folks here have been pushing for years. Since I was an intern in college, they were pushing for that then. And so now they've moved to the Medicare for all. And I definitely support every form of that. And anything that I could do as mayor, I definitely would support that. I've been telling people, they say, Shameeka, where are you going to get all this money from? We have money because I'm going in and I'm clearing house. I'm getting rid of the pen rolling positions that people don't, they've been grandfathered in, or nepotism is what got them to their spot. We don't need those positions. If you can't tell me how your position is improving the lives of Louisvillians, then that's a position we can get rid of. I say we don't lay off our police officers, we don't lay off our medical professionals, we don't lay off our librarians, we don't lay off the people that matter. And I want 24-hour, at least 4 to 5 24-hour community centers that turn into respite centers at night, so that when people are having problems, maybe little Susan had an argument with her parents and she can't stay at home, she can go there and rest and get the things she needs and start over the next day. Everybody doesn't need to enter the criminal legal system. So the way that we can deal with that is mental health. So there was it's funny you said that. Earlier today, I said I was going to remember it for our interview. There was she is a she's not a social worker, she's a therapist. She said, I've seen many patients, and I will tell you, I do what I can, and a lot of them have come through very well, but all of them need money. All of them need health care. All of them need access to their medications. So if somebody's having an episode like what happened in your neighborhood, that person should never be out of their medications. We have enough that we should be able to provide those medications. Now, at our state legislative level, they've been working to make sure that insulin and all those things are affordable. I feel the same about mental health medication, because if that's where some people are, and other options too. Some people might take some spirituality, some people might just need respite or be able to go somewhere, but for some people, they need that mental health, they need that medication. So yes, I would fully support that. That to me is a hierarchy need. It's a need that we don't talk about a lot, because we just assume that they're okay or they're covered by the state. I've been in the gaps where I left an organization and was just running my business. And when you're running your own business, you cut where you can, and you usually cut yourself out, right?
Right.
You either cut out your paycheck or you cut out your benefits. And I struggled, and I have a pacemaker. I'm on my 3rd pacemaker. And I left the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. I worked for them. And then it was back when 2008, when the financial stuff, it was after 2008. Anyway, my grant funded position ended. And so I had a year left. After that year, for the first time in my life, I got unemployment. Well, I didn't have medical coverage, and it was time to get my unit replaced. We did a fundraiser. We raised some of the money. One of the people that made my unit donated $90,000. They donated the unit, so I just had to pay the hospital bills. And so now that I'm on my 3rd one, I have to deal with that every 6 years or so. That's a reality, whether I'm employed or not. That's something that I have to have. So there is no way in hell I wouldn't support people having what they need, and we should be able to provide that. That's why we pay taxes. That's why we support our local governments, is to be able to do that. And I'm floored to hear about this with New York City. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that was a push. I think that that's something we definitely need here. We definitely need people to have that.
Yeah, not a lot of people did. It was, I think Jacobin wrote about it, or I can't remember which newspaper I read. I think New York Post might have covered it too, which was, if that is the case, and don't quote me, but like New York Post is not the most progressive of newspapers.
No, not at all.
So if
I'm gonna look it up.
If they did talk about it, and this is like months ago, that they were like, hey, we're gonna do this on a statewide level. And I thought, well, that's genius.
Yeah.
Right. Because to me, Pennsylvania is a medical state for cannabis. And now there's some bullshit where they're trying to, because you can't, now that we are a medical state, you can't drug test for, and I think like government positions are exempt, but like, I applied to be a security guard, and they do a drug test for that, but they can't drug test you for cannabis. Because if it's positive and they have a medical card, then that's a HIPAA violation, and that puts the company at risk for a lot of liability stuff, right? So now they're trying to overturn that, right? Because for all intents and purposes, as much as Pennsylvania likes to claim that it's progressive, we're not. We're a pretty conservative state.
Yeah.
So now there's a push to make sure that working people that use cannabis as part of medication, such as myself, don't have to be persecuted for that, right? Nobody asks whether you have a Xanax prescription or an Adderall prescription, but for some reason this is okay. So it become to me, it's a very difficult thing for the legislators to do. But I look at it as this is a state level problem. And if it's a state level problem, a lot more people can get involved, and a lot more it becomes closer to home for a lot of
Yes.
people. And
Legalization has to come with decriminalization. I've been participating in some of the local efforts on getting medical marijuana and all, because it's just, and somebody said this on Instagram. They showed this meme, and it was just like, it when the dispensaries look like Apple stores, then we need
yeah,
to let a lot of people out of jail. And I totally agree with that. Like,
100%.
and me and my husband went in one in LA, and I went in one in Toronto when I traveled over there. And I was just like, what the hell? And I know people when I was a young girl who are in jail now for getting caught with marijuana. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that I totally believe that we cannot have real legalization without the criminalization, and that does impact employment. Like, you should not
Right,
be tested for
right.
that, like that. Especially when you have something like cocaine or opioid that is out of your system within 2040. So who are you really targeting? You're
Right,
targeting
exactly.
the people that are more like stable and like just dealing with their anxiety, who are using they're self-medicating when they can't afford all these other medications. So it is, yeah, I definitely support that. And I have a lot of family and friends who depend on medical marijuana. And like, even when I went to Puerto Rico, they have it there where you have your card and you're able to go into the dispensary and things like that. We have to move with the future. So also there's a financial aspect here in Kentucky. Apparently there's something in our bluegrass dirt that has some properties that really helps with the cannabis, hemp, and marijuana. Like, it really helps, and so it's a potential cash crop where we used to be tobacco and coal, because I work, when I worked for the Kentuckians from the Commonwealth,
Right.
we knew coal was dying. But yeah, now they can, so like there. And then I wanted the decriminalization, because if you don't, then that means black, brown, and poor white people won't be able to benefit. They won't be able to open dispensaries, transport it, do all the things to be able to have the financial benefit. Then you're going to have another market come in and just take over, and you won't have it be, the Kentuckians and Louisvillians and whoever else won't be able to benefit. So yeah, I definitely support that. I think we do better by looking at what our reality is and stop looking backwards, because those archaic laws and ordinances, they're not what we need moving forward. We have to change them. So I've been also supporting my campaign to support good state reps that are running. We have a big ballot next year. We have over 40 judges, and before I decided to run, I was going to help get better judges elected, because they have so much judicial discretion here.
Mhm.
We can really make a change with them. But we have a lot of state rep seats and things like that, council seats. Local politics is everything, and I appreciate hearing this, because now when I have conversations, I can say, here's what Pennsylvania is looking at. Here's what
Right.
Pittsburgh is dealing with. I mean, I saw some of it on the ground when I was there for the Netroots, but it's even more now. I see there's people who really want the change. We just got to move some people out the way.
Yes, and I think if something like if Louisville ends up getting Medicare for all, and within the first year, you're seeing healthier people. People are out of medical debt. They're out of like their lives are improving, because it's like if you're spending $500 on health insurance a month, and then you go to the doctor and you still have to pay some more. It's that thing on Twitter that every mainstream politician does. What can this amount do for you, right? It's like we're seeing that. We're seeing what $500 in the pocket means for an average family of 3 or 4. Like
Yeah,
what
our
difference that
police
kind
just
of
got
makes.
5,000 bonus for COVID and dealing with everything they were dealing with. And there's a lot of Louisville Metro government employees. We have over 6,000 Metro government employees, but the police are less than 2,000 of that. But they got the biggest raises and benefits. Other departments didn't. But we depend on our Center for Health Equity. We depend on our health department, our social services, our human services. That is what we depend on, and they should all be paid. When I met with their union, I said, if I'm for workers, if I'm for families, if I'm for Louisville, we have to start with the employees first, because they are the ones who are helping us attain those services. So public health and wellness, you can't say you're for that and you don't support the people that work for them. You don't give them the benefits. They don't have employee packages that let them pay for, that covers their mental health care. I have that with my job. When I need therapy, my job pays for my therapy appointments. My job pays for my benefits. And so we can't have real government accountability or community safety, affordable housing, economic development if we're not taking care of the employees that work for us. So I'm starting with the workers, because we are what keeps our economy going. We are everything that we need moving forward. But yeah, any progressive legislation, ordinances, things that I can do, I'm all for it. I'm all for pushing for it. And that's why I want to be surrounded. I don't just want my friends with me. I want people who are on the other side of the aisle. There's a place where we meet, and I want to bring them together so that we can improve the lives of Louisvillians. And I would be remiss, because Rolf told me to make sure I mention that people can learn more about me at ShameekaParrish-Wright.com. And Google, they can Google my name and find about a lot of the things that I've been into. And this is about real change. I think the time is now. In any other time, I wouldn't tell you that I would feel as confident running right now, but this time, the being on the ground, hearing the people, we're too poised for real change. And this is not just in Louisville. This is, from what I just heard from you, it's in Pittsburgh. It's everywhere. We gotta, and where we meet, let's meet. Let's take the best practices. Let's apply those things. And our state governments have a lot of power to change things for our everyday lives. We need to push on them to make sure they do it. And the same with our local government.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. This was fantastic. You're a fantastic storyteller. You are.
You made it
You're very
easy.
engaging. You're you're it's nice to meet someone that's an activist, because rather than a politician, because you know how to talk to real humans. So that's like a big bonus for me.
Thank you. And when you live
So,
the lives, like I said, I'm turning 45. I didn't guess this 2 years ago. I was like, I need to get more people elected. So I was working behind the scenes. I'm just stepping from behind the corner. And so I
yeah,
have to raise money, right? But I told them, I just was at one of my fundraisers and I said, a lot of people can't say this, but I know we got way more votes because we have people power than we do money right now. But really, Chris, it should not take $1 million to win these campaigns. It
100%.
should take the people power to vote is what matter, connecting with those voters. And you cannot connect with those voters when you haven't lived their lives. So out of all the candidates, I've lived more lives of Louisvillians than any of them. And they know it's true. I'm not a threat because of that. I am pushing for real change, and they can't put a steering wheel in my back. So I'm not just here for the establishment or the people who've been running our city. You all have been in charge this whole time. Now you're done. It's time to let new leadership take place. And I'm a student of Ann Braden. She was my mentor before she passed a few years. And she used to say to me, Shameeka, you keep waiting for them to pass you the baton. They're not going to pass it. You got to take it respectfully. And that's just who I plan to be.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. You take care.
And there you have it, folks. Shameeka Parrish-Wright, activist, political consultant, mayoral candidate in Louisville, Kentucky. If you're in Louisville and you enjoyed this podcast, if what Shameeka said resonated with you and you want to support her campaign, you can do so by going to ShameekaParrish-Wright.com ShameekaParrishwright.com. Check out more information about her policies, where she comes from, and if you would like to make a contribution to her campaign, that is the place to go as well. And make sure you follow her on all the social medias to keep up with events and updates and all of the things. Again, like I said at the top of the show, I think local politics are important. I need to do a much better job of paying attention to local politics myself. That is a little blind spot that I know I have in terms of my politics, in terms about talking about these sociopolitical issues and all that sort of stuff. And I would like that to not be a blind spot. So I'm trying my best to try to pay attention, to as much as I can. Sometimes it does become overwhelming because there is so much news and information that comes out. But the point is again, please vote for somebody. If Shameeka is somebody that you have connected and resonated with, and you have someone you would like to vote for, right? I think that's the decision. That's also a positive way of making change, right? Voting against somebody adversarially is kind of a negative way of voting, right? And I'm not saying that you can't. I'm saying if you want positive change, then voting for is the way that you do it, right? I'm not and I'm not, again, I'm not in the business of telling people to vote for certain candidates and so on and so forth. But my personal view would be that if I was in Louisville and Shameeka was my mayoral candidate, that's who my vote goes to. That is the person that has belief systems that are very close to mine. On top of those ideological reasons, she's also a black woman. She's also a mom. She's also an average citizen, and she's also been an organizer. All of those things, to me, say that she is going to make laws and she is going to make changes to Louisville that are going to benefit the most amount of people. And the people that are probably going to be against Shameeka are the rich people that have been enriching themselves via someone like Mitch McConnell, via someone like the neoliberal or neoconservative candidate that's been around forever. Those are going to be the people that are going to be against Shameeka, the people that are against positive change and getting rid of this widening economic gap between average Americans and the ultra rich. Those people are going to be against someone like Shameeka. Because in order to be that rich, in order to have that much wealth, you don't gain it just through hard work. If that was true, then the mom with 3 jobs would be the richest woman in America. And that's just not how it is. So we don't have a meritocracy in this country. But someone like Shameeka might help us get closer to that. And isn't meritocracy supposed to be what America is all about? And if that's the case, and if working hard only means that we all make $250,000, which is still an extraordinary amount of money, by the way, and there are no more billionaires, and we get all of this money to fund the right social programs and improve the people's lives, I mean, crime's going to start going down. Why do crimes get committed even? They get committed because people are desperate. They don't get committed just because. People would have you believe that crimes get committed just because. No, there's psychological reasons, and a lot of them involve, the haves and the have-nots, because the haves kind of rub it in the have-nots' faces. And that creates jealousy. And that creates those negative emotions. And sometimes those negative emotions bubble up. And you have robberies and abuse and murder and all of these things. So if the root cause of the problem is this predatory economic system that creates this divide and then thrives on it, then it seems like and then complains that there's all of these negative things and then uses that to continue furthering the divide, then we get rid of that system. It's as simple as that. We got to start thinking differently. We got to come up with solutions that take care of the root cause of the problem and not a band-aid. Again, I'm going to repeat something I said throughout the Trump administration. which is, look, the body is riddled with cancer, and we're worried about a pimple. We got bigger problems to take care of. So, and I'm not saying the pimple's not a problem. It is, but priority wise, that's why I'm against anything systemically problematic, which is a weird way to phrase that, I know. But that's why I like people like Shama Savant and Shameeka Parrish-Wright. These are people on the local level trying to make some change. And if you believe in positive change, and if you believe in going after the root causes of these problems, then you should support Shameeka Parrish-Wright. And if you're in Louisville, you should vote for her. And again, if you would like to find out more information about Shameeka, you can go to her website, shameekaparrish-wright.com. If you guys want to follow what I do, you can follow everything I do, from virtual show dates, live show dates, because those are starting to come back now as well. And videos, podcasts, all the things right over on my website, which is krishmohanhaha.com. It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. And you can pretty much do all the things Krish Mohan there. You can check out my videos, podcasts, stand-up comedy albums, make donations, become a sustaining member, all buy tickets. That's the one-stop shop for all things Krish Mohan. KrishMohanHaha.com. And lastly, before I do sign off here, I do want to mention, you might have noticed that last week I didn't do an episode, and that's because last week was the first time that I changed the schedule of my Forkful of Noodles recordings from Friday nights to Thursday nights, just because I know folks are going out and trying to enjoy their weekend, and I don't want to try to do a virtual show that makes you pick between staying in and watching this thing or going out and doing some other stuff that brings you joy and all that sort of stuff. So I switched to Thursdays because it's a weekday and all that sort of so. That's why. And so on those Thursdays, so there's going to be one Thursday a month where you probably won't have a new episode come out from me, because I'm focusing on the show, and I want to make sure I get that right and not overwhelm myself. So that's why there wasn't an episode last week. So just figured I'd give you guys an update and an announcement about that. But with all that said and done, we'll be back next week. We're gonna keep moving through this. I've got some really cool interviews that I'm working on scheduling, some return guests, some new guests, and I'm pretty excited to talk to some really fucking cool people. So, and share those conversations with you guys. But as always, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and stay taboo, everybody. Bye.